Man, as a trainer, and really, I say trainer because that's the um, term that we use in the industry, but really, I see myself as more of a mentor, educator, and just really somebody who wants to serve. And when it comes to working with athletes, the one thing that I had to remind myself early in my career was that it wasn't about me, and it's not about me, especially when you talk about service of individuals. Each individual is unique, and so if it's about you, then how much could you really accomplish? And that is talking to not only just trainers, but coaches and parents and anybody that's in an authoritative position. I think that you have to sometimes you have to excuse your ego and emotions from your own experiences. When you keep your ego so attached to what you've accomplished and how you feel, then really you may determine something for the individual or do something for the individual, but is it really helping that individual or is it really helping you? And so I think that we have to be careful, because we who say that we want the best for those who are underneath us as it relates to helping them and servicing them, we have to be careful, because sometimes we become an enemy to them, and not necessarily an enemy as it relates to intentional, but we can become an unintentional enemy to them, because in our perception we aid in their self-destruction. And so I believe that any athlete that we get in here and we train, it's about the athlete. It's about what is going to help them and allow them to get better, and it's going to be different depending on what the strengths and the weaknesses are of the individual. And so, man, I just remove myself completely from the situation. I'm here to serve, and I'm not here to I get joy out of people fulfilling themselves and accomplishing goals, but I kind of remove myself as it relates to maybe what I experienced or maybe how I feel. And sometimes your experience and our emotions do play a factor. Sometimes it is important, but for the most part, they're their own being, they're their own entity. And so we just have to be careful as it relates to when we develop individuals, and what are we giving them as a resource? What are we giving them as support so that they can be better? Because at the end of the day, anybody that comes after me, anybody that I really come in contact with, my whole job is to help you be better than what you are. And I will want that to be your job as it relates to me. And so that means that if I get an individual in here, when I'm done, then at the end of whatever it is that I'm doing, I want them to be able to stand on my shoulders and to be able to see further and go faster and what they want than what I did in my career and my experience. And that's what it's all about, is having a mindset to serve individuals and to help individuals and not make it so much about yourself. I learned that, it takes a lot of humility to do that, to serve people, because people are hard to deal with. People are really difficult to deal with. And, when it comes to dealing with young people, it's easier to help and serve them. Sometimes they take on a perception of people that they trust. And in that perception, I put it like this. There's been a lot of times where, we recommended, or I've recommended something from somebody, not based on me just feeling a certain type of way, but based on data and based on, past experiences of where they're trying to go and seeing people who have came before them go to that point based on where they were. And sometimes you'll hear this is a common one where, and I'm only relating this in terms of football because it's an easy one to understand, but sometimes you'll see a player and you'll be like, man, he can do this, he can do that, he should be playing this position. And then you have like not so much, it's more so the fathers that do it, but you'll have a dad be like, well, I want him to play this and he should be playing this. And there's so many people that have missed opportunities because the perception of an authority figure or the perception of someone that they trust was guiding them, and they were misguiding them because they wanted them to do what they wanted them to do, but not necessarily what they were able to do and what they could have done, and even went further and done, much better. So I think for us as people who work with children and just work with people in general, we have to remove ourselves completely from it. Even to a point where, one of the first athletes that I worked with in terms of development, and let me say this, man, there's a difference between development and drilling. Sometimes trainers go to YouTube University and they have a BS degree, and the BS does not mean Bachelor of Science. So you can identify what that means. But they have a BS degree and they take everything from it. And what happens is once they take it from it, they say, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. So it's empty training, basically. And so my whole thing is that I don't get engaged with empty training. It's development. And so with development comes drill. So there's certain things that you need to be able to do, certain things that you have to be able to understand, and certain things that you have to not only understand, but you have to be able to communicate to the individual, and they have to be able to receive, not necessarily just communicate, but they have to be able to receive what you're saying. So a lot of times where trainers, but parents too as well, we tend to talk to the athlete or we talk to the child, and when we talk to them, they don't truly understand what we're saying. So they keep repeating the same thing that we don't want to repeat because we're not giving them true understanding. We're just telling them what to do. And in some respects, that is what you want to do. But I understand a little bit more why, not that I agree with it, but I understand a little bit more why it's difficult for parents to do it. It's because sometimes the parents don't even understand, or the trainers don't even understand what they're saying to the individual. They just say it because traditionally that's what they've been told or that's what they've said. So I think there has to come a point in time where humility has to be of the most important characteristics, because when you're humble, I have players come to me all the time and young people come to me all the time and they don't understand something. And it's like, yo, you just can't say this. You got to be able to explain what it is. And I got to a point where I started explaining things to a point where they understood it. It wasn't just because I was saying it that you had to listen to this or you got to listen to this because I'm the authority figure. It's okay. At some point, I got to be able to change my philosophy and change my approach to get them to understand, because a lot of times followers fall short because the leaders are falling short. And so you have to become a better leader than you are just a dictator in order to get people to go where you want them to go. And that's one of the approaches that I take when I'm dealing with athletes. And, the other thing is too, when it comes to being an authoritative figure, one of the things that, I take pride in is, and it's a struggle, right? It's a struggle for everybody, but I take pride in not just telling them what to do, but being able to show them what to do. And I believe that obviously we have power in our words and we have power in our ways. But what happens is we get so stuck in the words and we don't do the ways, and so we lack integrity and we don't actually do what we should be doing as it relates to the word and the ways being in sync with each other. And children are imitators. So they may hear something, but they imitate what you do. So you may say, hey, you shouldn't be doing X, Y, and Z, but they see you do it all the time. And so I think you have to be very, very careful in an authoritative position, in a leadership position, as it relates to getting people to, follow the way that you deem to be right, or the way that you deem to be successful in their development. And so, you take it from just weather and science, is that, light travels at 186 miles per second, 186,000 miles per second. And then sound travels at 1,120 feet per second. And so when you look at the comparison, you see that light travels much faster than sound. And so what does that even mean? What that means is when you speak to an individual, that's sound. It's traveling fast. But when you show somebody, you show an individual, that's light. And so the power is in the sound, but there's more power in the light. And so if your words and your ways aren't matching up, then you lack power. And so that's the thing that we have to understand, is that once we sync them together that's going to be important. And I know it's difficult because now that challenges the mindset of those who are leading, because now you can't only lead with just saying, you have to lead with what you do. And that's the challenge when you've been stuck in your ways and you grow older for so long. And so that's a critical thing as it relates to leading and trying to help people, maximize who they are and their ability to accomplish things that they have in life. Speaking on Fort Wayne, one of the things that is evident and obvious is that when you look at Fort Wayne has a lot of talent, like a lot of talent. And I'm not talking about, here and there. I'm talking about a lot of talent just spread out. And, we tend to think athletically first, but there's a lot of talent, as you see, that's coming up. But I'm sticking with the athletic aspect of it. When you look at the players that are going and being produced and going to the NFL, if you look at the size of Fort Wayne and you look at the amount of people that are going, I think it's comparable or it's up there with some of the best in the country. And what does that tell you is that if we have players that are going to the professional ranks from this city, which is obviously not one of the known cities in Indiana, but it's not Indianapolis in terms of size. And what you see players going, and not only are they going, they're successful. And so they are some of the best. And so when you look at Jalen, when you look at Jesse, those two dudes are some of the best at the position that they play. And so we have that ability. But one of the things that bothers me about Fort Wayne is you hear it all the time in small circles, but I'll say it, is that in Fort Wayne, man, it's so much envy and jealousy, and everybody's single-minded. So people aren't really trying to work together because it's really not about the child in the first place. Everybody wants to take the credit for something. Everybody wants to be in the front of something. Everybody wants to be the person that did X, Y, and Z. And I'm saying all of this because if you check and you do research, at least for the last 8 years, I've been blessed to be one of the biggest producers or biggest aids in the development of athletes. And so if you look at receivers being spread out and you look at where they started at and then where they got to, there's numerous receivers that have been developed and played at a certain level. But and Dre gets a lot of credit for it, and that's coming externally. But a lot of people don't realize that, man, I had a team that helped me do that. That wasn't just Dre Muhammad doing this. I had a team, and I had Carl Thomas, who was doing the strength and conditioning. I had Jeff King, who was doing speed. At the time we had PSM, Parkview Sports Medicine, who was doing the rehab and therapy. So there was a collective team that will allow these players to maximize their potential. And so when you look at Austin Mack, when you look at Ben Skoranek, when you look at D. Eskridge, these dudes didn't just get there because of Dre Muhammad. Dre Muhammad did have, whether it was mentorship, relationship, he had a lot to do with, building those relationships. But when it comes to the development aspect of it, it was way more than just me. And a lot of people can't see that. And so when it comes to, helping Fort Wayne and helping the athletes get to a certain point, people are just really just standoffish when it comes to it. And they don't really see the bigger picture. And I think that's the struggle that I have is, whether it's envy, whether it's jealousy, whether it's just a lack of vision, we limit ourselves. And so, I'll be comfortable and say that, when you see Jalen's, he's a rare dude when it comes to the athletic aspect and just, when it comes to who he is as a person. But it would be hard for you to get me to believe that there's not another Jalen Smith somewhere in Fort Wayne. It would be very, very hard for you to get me to believe that because Jalen wasn't always Jalen. Right? Jalen developed over a period of time because he had good mentors. He had a great supporting cast when it comes to the family. Mom and dad was there. He had people surrounding him that allowed him to get to that point. But from the stories that I've heard, Jalen, he was clumsy at a certain point, and then he got to that point. And so who's to say that there's not 5 or 6 more of those players out there? When you look at Jesse Bates, Jesse's the same situation, the Drew Tranquils, all of these players, they had supporting cast and they had a team of people. And we do a disservice to Fort Wayne because we don't want to come together because if I can't get the recognition or if I can't get the clout or if I can't get, the finances from it. Like, I don't want to be a part of it. And it's more work to do it by yourself than it is to work with somebody else. Extremely more work to do it by yourself than to work with somebody else. And so I think, when you look at Fort Wayne, those people that are in positions of powers and those who can help, influence and impact and develop, those are the ones who should be uniting and coming together to work with each other. And there's so many realms of, careers and so many different, functions and industries that people should be working together with. But I think that's the thing that really I struggle with. And, I don't know if you look at the NCAA and you look at some of the scandals and stuff that goes on, and you look at the exploitation of things that happen. But when you look at Fort Wayne too, there's a lot of exploitation going on. And when I speak of exploitation, what I'm referring to children are being exploited, parents are being exploited, trainers are being exploited, and they're being exploited because you can only be exploited based on your lack of knowing something or your ignorance and what you don't understand or comprehend. And so I think, again, if we can collectively, and when I say we, I'm referring to individuals that really have it about the children. So if it's about the children, that's if it's not, then obviously there is no coming together, because it's not about the focus and the priority is off. And so if we can come together and we can make it about what it's really about, which is the children, then what happens is we produce more and more athletes, which can come back and help the city to blossom and do whatever we want. And so I think that that's definitely something that Fort Wayne can work on and improve upon. And it's not just me calling out Fort Wayne, but obviously individually, as an organization, we desire partnerships. We want to work with people, or work with organizations that want the best for their children. And I know business is business, but we want to do that because we believe that we have a proven process of development when it comes to athletes. And the thing about the process is that the process is not just tailor-made to football. The process is tailor-made to all who develop, to who are committed to developing. And so I think that's one thing that we can work on as a city and really do our best to provide the best experience for athletes that are coming up. As it relates to development, one of the things is that I really, because I don't believe that you can give somebody something that you don't have. And so if you struggle with belief, it's going to be hard for you to give a child that what you're trying to promote and push to them. It takes, you having what you're trying to give for it to be given to an individual. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time focusing on is just belief in myself, and how can I maximize me, because I believe that it's somewhat a contradiction, or it is a contradiction, that one can say that, I believe in God, but I don't believe in myself. I don't even know how that works, because whatever you have of yourself was deposited from God. And so as you are looking to make something happen from God, he's looking at you and he's saying, well, I've given you everything that you need to be successful. So I love the fact that you believe in me, but you need to believe in yourself. And I think that's the one thing that stops individuals and athletes from really achieving what they can achieve, is that they don't really believe in themselves. And so, one of the things that I did, and Austin Mack, who now is a current receiver for the New York Giants, one of the things that I did with him, and I did it with a lot of athletes that I work with, is that I used to let them beat me in certain things that will allow them to gain confidence in. And it's sort of like, I don't know if you guys ever watched like Animal Planet, but sometimes like when you look at lions, they allow the cubs to seem like they win it, and then to gain some confidence in what they're about to embark on. And I would do things with him, whether it be racing, and to this day he has a video, and he knows that I let him win, but he'll push it out. But to this day, there are things that I would do to allow him to improve his belief, but they have to go through certain obstacles and challenges that challenge their belief. And so I remember talking to Austin when he was a freshman, And I asked him, do you know how good you can be? And I asked this question to a lot of my individuals and athletes, and he looked at me and just stared at me. He didn't have an answer, and I asked him again, do you know how good you can be? And he just looked at me again, and I told him, you can be one of the best to ever, play the game, especially coming out of Fort Wayne. And I did the same thing to Ben Skoranek. And it wasn't because, I was trying to get them against each other, but I knew that they had an opportunity to do something, and they just needed somebody to believe and see in them. And that's what happened. And so when I did that, then they had to go through the process to challenge themselves on that belief. And then at some point, they took what I thought about them, and they believed it so much, and they accepted it so much, and then adapted it and started acting on it. And once they started acting on it, they started seeing things happen for themselves. And so they ended up getting to a point where when you look at Ben's one of the most confident receivers or confident dudes I know. And then the same thing for AMAC is he's super confident, but it took somebody having that from experience to actually give to him. And so I think, whenever we want to give something to somebody, we just have to check first if we have whatever it is that we want to give. And that's going to determine how successful we can be in the transition or transition of what we have to them. And so that's a big thing when it comes to development is don't try to force belief on somebody if you don't have it yourself. At least challenge yourself and grow in yours, and whatever degree you have, then pass it off. But if you don't truly believe in yourself, then time shows, and the product that you put out, people will be aware of. And so I think that's one of the key things that I do focus on is belief, because we're dealing with individuals who come from nothing. And when I say nothing, I'm referring to these are young, impressionable children who may have a desire to play somewhere or go somewhere, but they don't really know what it takes to get there. So you got to guide them through it and walk them through it as much as possible.